We turn now to a look at the U.S. economy. Gary Cohn was the head of the White House National Economic Council in the first Trump administration. Good morning. Great to have you back.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So it finally happened. The Federal Reserve lowered interest rates by a quarter point, which was expected. So rates are now in this range of 4 to 4.25%, lowest level since 2022. The president had said all of this was overdue. What changes now?
So look, I think the Fed gave us a lot of important information this last week. As you said, they started down the path of cutting interest rates, going to 4 to 4.25. They also gave us their outlook. So the 17 governors gave us their projections to where they think interest rates are going. So that plot that they put out shows that overall, they believe that interest rates will be cut 2 more times over the course of this year. Now, it's not 100% clear because the committee is divided. There are about 7 members of the committee that do not want another cut this year, but there are 10 members of the committee that want at least 2 more cuts, and one wants more than 2 cuts. So that averages out to 2 cuts this year, which would take the federal funds rate, and it's important to understand it's the federal funds rate, it would take that down to 3.6% for year end. What is also important is the committee was fairly unanimous. I think people were worried about the independence of the Fed. I think the Fed clearly showed themselves to be independent thinkers. They took into account all of the economic data, and they came out with projections that made sense based on what is going on in the economy today.
So when rates go lower, money gets cheaper to borrow, essentially.
Well,
but what does it actually mean for consumers?
Yes and no. So what the Federal Reserve sets is they set the federal funds rate. That's the overnight rates that banks charge each other to borrow on a secured basis. It has nothing to do with where American consumers borrow money. Unfortunately, American consumers borrow money on more of the 5-year, the 7-year, the 10, and the 30-year rates, because that's where automobile loans, credit card loans, student loans, and mortgages are indexed to. Those interest rates are not determined by the Federal Reserve. They're determined by the open market. Those rates, in fact, after they cut rates earlier this week, went up a little bit. That said, they are down over the last few months, but those rates do not automatically go down when the Federal Reserve cuts rates. They have more to do with the market, and it's a supply-demand situation that determines those rates.